Thank you for staying with us. This is Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. At this point, we want to shift to another topic, and that's talking about insecurity in Benue State. For quite some weeks, we've had cases of insecurity. Several people have lost their lives in Benue State. We've had reports, some reports saying over 260 killed in 6 weeks, and so conflicting reports. But the fact remains clear. Insecurity is rising in Benue State. We've had this conversation with security experts before now. At some point, there was a time the governor of Benue State actually blamed the ECOWAS protocol of 1999 that allowed, cross-border grazing as one of the factors causing the insecurity being faced in Benue State. Several people were killed every week. We've had loss of lives in Benue State. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, the Chief of Army Staff actually visited Benue State with some top military officials. It was actually reported in the news that he relocated. How the newspapers reported it was that the Chief of Army Staff actually relocated to Benue State. Alas, it was just a working visit with some of his top officials just to beef up security in Benue State and also to boost the morale of the officers at the forefront of the fight against insecurity. In the same week that the Chief of Army Staff visited, there were attacks in Benue State. More lives were lost. At some point, the chairman of Gwe local government area, he said he's tired of talking to journalists because it seems every day we keep reporting the same case. We are asking the same questions. People are being killed. Scores of people are being killed and nothing is done about it. If you read some of those, if you go through some of those accounts, very gory reports, how people, the survivors, the few ones who survived, when they tell their stories, how some of them had to jump inside wells just to escape, just to survive being hacked to death. Just recently, over the weekend, on Saturday night, in the early hours of the day, some terrorists attacked them again. This time around, we understand they are herders, and over 100 people were actually killed in that attack. According to some reports are saying that the death toll might actually be up to 200 in some cases. A Guma local government staff who preferred anonymity said the massacre could best be described as an annihilation. That's the word used there. She called it an annihilation of a race, because this is certainly a plan to wipe out an ethnic group. He said over 100 dead bodies had been recovered, with many families burned beyond recognition. Majority of the victims are IDPs, that's internally displaced persons, who take shelter in the market stalls and shops along the road. These evil bandits poured petrol before setting fire on the shelters, burnt them in their sleep. That's just the account of a local government official right there, describing how people were killed, how over 100 bodies were counted, and that report was taken from the Daily Trust newspaper. Several other reports of this terrible incident, and major Nigerians, many Nigerians, prominent Nigerians have come out to condemn this. People like Peter Obi have condemned it, Atiku Abubakar too have condemned it. But let us not just look at it from the point of opposition figures condemning the attack. Every Nigerian is actually condemning this attack, because this has become one attack too many. In one day, over 100 lives were lost, and we will be speaking to that at this point. Joining us on this conversation is Dr. Chuks Maha, a security analyst. Thank you, Dr. Chuks Maha, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. Good morning, Emeka, and your colleague, Femi. Good morning. Thank you for bringing me on board.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you so much. Dr. Maha, looking at this case right now, the case of Benue State, so far, so many, there's been, allegations, counter-allegations, arguments between the governor of the state and security agencies concerning the number of people killed, the Chief of Army Staff visiting and all that. But this has continued. Just recently, over the weekend, over 100 bodies, from these reports now, the latest one, over 100 bodies were counted. Some people fear that up to 200 might have been killed. Even the Pope himself actually prayed for Benue. He described it, Pope Leo XIV described it as a terrible massacre. Dr. Chuks Maha, what exactly do you think is going on in Benue State?
Well, the problem of Benue State is not just Benue State alone. It's the whole country. I want to say my personal opinion, politics is being played with security in Nigeria. That's my personal opinion. Secondly, the governor, as far as I'm concerned, is not yet serious about it. If it's indeed is serious, he should shut the state house and move his governor's office closer to the people. What do I mean by this? Spread out his commissioners and everybody who it is. Because the truth of the matter, this is going to continue until somebody up there politically loses a close family member before they sit down and say enough is enough. It's because nobody is close to them is being lost. No life that's been lost so far is close to any of the political bigwigs. That's why nobody's taking it serious. When they begin to lose their relations, then they will then look at it from a different angle. It's unfortunate we had so much loss of life in one day. It's not as if Nigeria is at war externally, but unfortunately it's at war internally. Why? For various reasons. Sympathy, I don't care, and people who are taking sides for reasons best known to them. I've said before on this program of yours, I've said in other fora, we have one of the best intelligence gathering agencies in Africa here in Nigeria. We can fish them out, smoke them out, and get rid of them. However, I want to say here before I take this little break, the government must first stand, take a decision, and from the presidency, when I'm talking about president, I'm not talking about Mr. President alone, the entire presidency, the FEC, should come up and take a position telling the public enough is enough. The body language must correspond with what is being vocalized out. And then the security agencies can then take it off from there. I've said before that Mr. President should call the service chiefs, give them an order in black and white, in writing, not verbally, so nobody can deny anything. This is what I want you to do. Once that is done, I can assure you the various service chiefs, whoever is listening, will do the needful. They've been trained. They know what to do. But however, they're being careful because this is a political dispensation. No service chief wants to lose his job per se. He wants to still stay in the good books of the presidency of Mr. President himself. So he needs to be careful. And that's why we're saying Mr. President should give out an order, an executive order in black and white.
All right. Now, Doctor, it's a sorry case, and the people there have been protesting. We even learned, maybe at the weekend they protested, and of course you get to see resistance from the security agencies and all of these things. We'd like to unravel. We've had this issue discussed over and over. Nigerians are tired. I'm from Osun State here. Of course, I'm working from here, but then I'm concerned. I'm worried. If it's Benue today, it might be somewhere tomorrow. Nobody deserves to be killed in this gruesome manner. But the questions Nigerians will ask are, who are these assailants? They have been called marauders, they have been called armed men, they have been called militias. Sometimes some call them the killer headers. This morning, I think they have been called armed invaders. Who are they? What do they want?
Well, at best, we can say they're just out there to destabilize governments, protecting persons' interests. And that's why I say we all need to come together. When we talk of the government, it's not just the executive powers now, the legislative arm and the judiciary, including we the people. These people are no spirits. They're no magicians. They come in and they go out. People see them, but either out of fear or the I don't care syndrome or attitude of the average Nigerian, just couldn't be bothered. Nobody's saying anything. So until we come to that fact that, look, like you rightly said, you are in Osun, I'm in Lagos, this is happening in Benue, knowing fully well if it happens in Benue today, it can spread out and even come down to Lagos. But I've said it before, that each state has its own form of, will I use the word, the topography, the people, the security consciousness of the people will differ from place to place. We have what we might call a threshold. What some states might tolerate, some other states will not tolerate. And this now comes to the executive. That's why I said the governor of Benue State hasn't taken this thing seriously. If he cries out and tells Mr. President, look, I am ready for you to declare Benue State a state of emergency, what do you think Mr. President will do? They should declare Benue State a state of emergency, send a military administrator for 6 months, and wipe the place clean.
All right, Dr. All right,
Yeah.
Dr. Ma, we are really short on time. There's so many questions I would have liked to ask you here, but I'll just take you up on one of them because of time. I wish we can actually continue this conversation some other time. You said Nigeria has one of the best security agencies, one of the best intelligence apparatus. I beg to disagree, and a lot of Nigerians will beg to disagree. If that is the case, what you are saying does not tally with the reality. How do you mean we have the best? When people are being killed in Benue State and nothing is happening, no one has been apprehended, let's say we do not have enough personnel on ground. How about other means of intelligence gathering? We're in the era of technology right now. Why can't we deploy technologies like drones to man those places that cannot be manned by human beings and all that? So many factors here. How do you mean that we have the best of intelligence apparatus, yet Benue State is suffering this massacre, this annihilation, as they put it?
I said something now. The military cannot on its own do anything without the permission and the order from the president. I said it. The president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces and all the security agencies put together. The security agencies each day come out and they churn out information. All the information, security information, is sent down in brief and in details to the office of the NSC, who in turn, summarizes and sends down to Mr. President. What is done with that information, I cannot say, I do not know. But one thing I do know, in the dispensation of politics, the civilian dispensation, people tread softly or carefully. And that's the truth. But however, the situation in the country for now should not allow for that. Drastic measures should be taken. And that's the point I'm talking about. Put politics aside, take a decision, no matter how drastic it is, and go forward. That's the point I'm talking about.
All right.
The military, the security agents cannot do anything on their own. Please note that. Anybody who tells you they can is just misleading. However, I want to start by summarizing here that the people of Benue State should stand up and fight. Fight for your life, fight for your land, fight for your future.
How can they do that?
We all have the right.
Doctor, how can they do that?
Hold on. The 1999 Constitution provides for self-life protection. You have the right to protect your life as an individual. If individuals come together, they can protect themselves.
With what weapons?
And of course, that can only happen perfectly if they have the backing of the state government.
How can they do that when, they don't have the weapons? We have not been licensed, that everybody should be allowed to carry guns. And we heard about relocation of the army chief. It hasn't worked. What should we do differently, sir?
Now, let me tell you one thing. There are many ways to fight a war. Sometimes it doesn't necessitate carrying of a gun. Information is key. Now, if I said earlier on that if the state governor really wants to do what he has to do, in Benue, in Benue State, if I asked you now, where is the home state of the Nigerian Air Force? Where would you say it is?